Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and to another list building video, this time for the D-Day British book. So there's a fair few formations in this book with a lot of new toys, so it's a bit of a longer one, but bear with me. So all the lists are done to 100 points. They're more using an attacking stance to them. And usually I try to get the minimal amount of units to be in reserve. So for this case with the British, there'll be a lot of command cards just pipping up some tanks to make them fit in nicely for 40 points. So we'll go through, I think it was, I don't think it's quite the order in the book, but it was the order it was on forces. So we're going to be starting with the Parachute Company. Okay, so Parachute Company, British Paratroopers, Red Devils. So my probably favourite infantry from the British. So we have three parachute platoons in this formation. I like them because you give them additional PIAT. So they have 2 PIATs and 7 rifle teams. They also have some mortars and some 75mm pack howitzers. So supporting them we have a Sherman OP, some Daimler armoured cars for some spearhead, M10s and a Sherman troop. We also have the Shermans with dedicated AA, so basically it gives them some 50 cals for a 1 point, and they also have Joe Ekins, which we'll have a little look at later, for 4 points. So that with the M10s is a perfect amount for reserves, and we had 1 point left over for lucky. The only thing is you'll have to wait for your armour to turn up to support your paratroopers. So we have the parachute platoon here: careful, fearless, trained, and deadly assault in a 3+. Very good. The only thing they could do with is being just veteran, easier to dig them in, and they have halted, rate of fire of 2 and 1 moving because they are rifle MG teams, and the PIAT is anti-tank 10 with assault 4+. So being able to have 2 of them is very handy. You can also upgrade these guys to the 1st Canadian Parachute Battalion, Relentless. So basically +2 points per parachute rifle platoon. Gives them a 2+ rally. I've never taken it because I'll just roll 1s if I do. Another new feature, we have the Airborne 75mm light troop, so basically howitzers, so careful, fearless, veteran, so very good to range in with these guys. Obviously it's a little slightly shorter range than your 25 pounders. The direct fire obviously isn't very good. The firepower is the same, but the anti-tank isn't as good as your 25 pounders, but there's another slot in your formation, and if you take this it also enables you to take OP options. Only one downside to it, it does have a 4+ gun save and no gun shield. Next up we have the Air Landing Company, so fairly similar to the parachute platoon, but the makeup of their platoons are different, and what you can take is slightly different, more little support options within the formation. But we have 3 air landing platoons. We have our mortars again and our pack howitzers. And again, we have the exact same support with the same command cards as the Parachute Company. Okay, so the Air Landing Platoon stat-wise is the same as the Paratroopers. The only difference is they have the 2-inch mortar, so basically you lose a rifle round gun team to gain your 2-inch mortar. But the good thing is you can add that additional PIAT. But otherwise, same points. Double check. Yeah, so 10 points for a power platoon and 10 points for an air landing platoon, so no difference. It's just what you can take alongside them. Okay, so Joe Ekins has featured already twice in our list. So basically this card is a Sherman armoured troop, so it's a warrior upgrade card. So basically the Firefly 17-pounder tank in this platoon may re-roll any of its failed to hit rolls. That is pretty good since you want your 17-pounders to hit. And also the Firefly 17-pounder weapon in this unit has the precise rule, so basically your opponent's armour can't benefit from being long range. So that's 80-14 coming at you no matter how far away you are. So very decent for 4 points, just don't let it get killed straight up. And we also had a dedicated AA, so it's +1 point for the unit. So basically gave it 50 cals. So it's not bad at all. So basically, you if you're halted, you get 350 cal shots with 2 regular MGs, or 2 and 2. But the good thing is the 50 cals have 5+ firepower, so that'll extra to get rid of dug-in infantry, and it also has self-defense AA. Next formation, we have the Commando troops, so the elite boys. We have 3 sections of them as well. So that is 7 rifle teams, a Piat and a 1-inch mortar. Unfortunately, no additional Piat for them. We also have some Vickers machine guns and 3-inch mortars, which is nice. And then again, they're pretty much similar support with the Daimlers, the M10s, and the Shermans. We have another command card, the Commando Flamethrower this time, dedicated AA, Joe Ekins, and the Lucky card again. Okay, so the Commando section is probably the really hard-hitting infantry of the British and of Flames of War in general. So they're careful, fearless, veteran, and hit on 2 pluses in assault. And they have mind and heart, which basically enables them to go up cliffs. And then weapon-wise is the same as we've seen from the infantry so far, but they do cost a little bit more, as you would expect, being the elite infantry. But in this list, you have 3 platoons of them, so once they get into combat, it's going to be pretty deadly. I also equipped each platoon with Commando flamethrowers, so basically each platoon in this formation may replace 1 Bren gun and SML rifle team with a flamethrower team, having the following ratings. Obviously, if I can have flamethrowers, I'll have them, because they're just, all you need is that 1 hit. I know you get 2 shots with it, but once you hit an infantry unit or gun team with it, they are pinned, and also the auto firepower is pretty decent as well. Okay, so now we're on to your regular rifle company. So it's quite full with 3 platoons. You can't add the additional Piat, only the paratroopers and airborne units get that. We have some mortars, universal carriers, so we have our OP in formation, our spearhead in formation, and we have some wasps, which are excellent, which we will have a look at later. We have our M10s and Shermans to go into reserve with Joe Ekins again and dedicated AA. We have some 4.2-inch mortars, which we'll have a look at as well. And these rifle company is actually a Canadian rifle company, and one of the units has kangaroo transports as well. Okay, so the rifle platoon that we've seen quite regularly in our British lists, the biggest change to them we will see. So they're careful, confident, counterattack on a 3+, but now they are war weary, they rally on a 5+. The boys have been fighting for a long time now, and they don't want to get killed this late into the war. So rallying is a problem, but we have command cards to help with that. They're trained, and they still have their deadly assault. So as mentioned, they are a Canadian rifle company, so basically plus 2 points per rifle platoon gives them a rally of 3+. There you go, as I mentioned, we can get rid of that war weariness. But there are plenty of other cards to upgrade the infantry. We have the 53rd Welsh Division, so it improves the last stand and dig in. We have Monty's Ironside, so the rally is on a 4+. We have 15th Scottish Division, so basically they get bonuses if they're near Churchills. And the 49th Polar Bears, so it's actually -1 point, and the last stand is a 5+, and the counterattack is a 4+. And the Wasp carrier, so basically it is a universal carrier but with a flamethrower in it, and as I mentioned, if I can get flamethrowers I will have them. They're careful, confident, trained, and of course they're flamethrowers, so counterattack on a 6, remount on a 5, and assault 6. So as long as you can keep them alive going into deal with the enemy, there's 3 of them, so that's 9 shots of flamethrowers with auto firepower, so they are quite handy. Okay, so the 4.2-inch mortars, if I can, I tend to prefer them over Sextons and 25-pounders, mainly because the firepower is a 3+, just making it that little bit better as an artillery unit. You do sacrifice your anti-tank and range, but you do add this, and they are slightly cheaper, and they also fire smoke bombardment. So as long as you are able to field mortars, you can use these and you get a unit of 4 of them, which is quite handy. Now, I did forget to take a picture of the kangaroo cards. Basically, you add a transport option to one of the platoons. It is the same armor as a priest, and it has 50 cals as well. It's always good to have a unit mounted up in some armored transport, and they're quite good to have, in my opinion. Okay, next we're into some armour now. So this is the Sherman DD Armoured Squadron. So this represents the first Shermans coming off the boats. So they're only units of 3, no Fireflies, apart from you can have a unit of 3 Fireflies incorporated in them. So we have 2 units of 3 Shermans, 3 Fireflies, and we have some Crusader AAs just to bolster the formation, and we also have 3 Shermans in the HQ. We have some priests, which are downgraded to sextons for -2 points, Daimlers, M10s, and we have a parachute platoon with an additional Piat in support. I didn't talk over the Sherman card because we've seen the Sherman before plenty of times, but the Firefly is interesting in this formation because they can be taken on their own. Only a unit of 3, however, but it is nice to have your Fireflies concentrated in one platoon. I thought I'd show you our old friend from the desert, the Crusader, is now an AA tank, so it's careful, confident, trained, it's self-propelled gun, so there's a counter-attack and assault on the 6, very light armour. You can only have a unit of 2, and I only ever take them to like anchor a formation just to make it that a little further away from break-in, but these are fairly good tanks against dug-in infantry and against your very, very, very lightly armored cars or unarmored vehicles. Okay, so before I talk about the sextons, you can downgrade your formation for -1 point per unit to Sherwood Rangers. Basically, they become reluctant and they remount on a 4+. Right, so the sextons. So it's -2 points off your priests, so it makes them 14 points. So the same as 25 pounders. So I don't tend to take 25 pounders. I prefer sextons because they can't get pinned. And they're basically a mounted 25 pounder. The armor's not great, but it stops you getting pinned is the main thing, and that's why I take them. And -2 points off priests as well. Okay, so now we have our Desert Rats Rifle Company. So the Desert Rats are slightly cheaper than your regular infantry, which we'll see why in a minute. So we have 3 platoons with some mortars, MMG carriers, universal carriers, more wasps, and another universal carrier patrol, and UCs actually have Piats as well. So in support we have some M10s, and to keep it more thematic, I've added Desert Rats Cromwell armoured troops, so that's 3 Cromwells and a Firefly, and some Desert Rat Stuarts as well. Again, we have our 4.2-inch mortars, 51st Highland Division, and we're still allowed to have our kangaroo transports again, which I forgot to take a picture of, and the lucky cards. Okay, so now you can see why they're slightly cheaper. So they're still careful, but they're flat out reluctant, but with a counterattack on a 4+. So that's your rallies and your last stands and your follow me is not likely to happen, and the counterattack is worse compared to your other British infantry. But these guys have been fighting a long time, and they're not happy about still having to fight when there's still people at home not having done their innings. But they're still skilled with their trained and their deadly assault. And there is a command card for these guys called the Wessex Division, which basically, before you roll any dice, you discard your card and you automatically rally, but that is once per game. Okay, so to help along with the fact that they're reluctant, I've given them the 51st Highland Division bagpipes. So that means if the unit is within 6 inches of their HQ, they rally on a 4+. So this can be attached to any rifle company, so this means it can be used with the Desert Rats. Okay, so this is a Desert Rats MMG carrier bit. It can be used in the regular rifles and the other motor companies, which we'll see later. So it's careful, reluctant, trained. Reluctant is following the stats, so you'll see the reduced stats on all the stuff from the Desert Rats formation, not just the infantry. Basically, these are Vickers heavy machine guns in a UC, in a universal carrier. So they're just mobile machine guns that can fire an artillery template, which is always quite fun. Okay, so now we have the heavy Churchill armoured squadron. So we only have one Churchill in the HQ slot, but it is a late Churchill. And then we have 3 troops of 3, and one of which is a late one. So as you can see, without the late upgrade, they are 18 points, so more expensive than Fortress Europe ones, but we will see why. Supporting them, we have some Daimlers, M10s, because we need that anti-tank 14, and we have our trusted parachute platoon to help them out, and a lucky card. Okay, so the Churchill armoured troop. So it's careful, confident, trained, and has a remount and protected ammo of 3+. Its front armour is 9 now, so that is 1 more than it was in Fortress Europe. And with the late version, it is now front armour 11. It's also a 75mm. It has a 3+ firepower now, which is quite nice. But you can upgrade it for free to give it a 6-pounder, giving it AT11, but 4+ firepower. There is upgrade cards for it, so we have the 6 Guards Tank Brigade infantry tanks. So basically, it gives them a 3+ last stand for 3 points flat across your formation. Okay, so now we have the Cromwell Armoured Recce. So very expensive tanks, so there's not much in the formation, but they do have scout, so they can get into good positions, and they are quite fast as well. So we have 2 units of 3, and we have 1 Cromwell in the HQ with 4 Stuarts. So again, we have our Sextons with an OP this time, some M10s, and by God, I even had points for aircraft and a parachute platoon. Just to mention, there is a command card to change this formation to a Czech armoured squadron. So basically, you lose the scout. You're able to add a Firefly DD armoured troop, and it actually costs less points. I've used it once. It's quite fun because they actually get a 3+ blitz move. So here is the Cromwell Armoured Recce troop, careful, confident, trained with a 3+ remount, but it has scout, so as long as it doesn't shoot, it will remain gone to ground, so quite handy. Armour, front armour is the same as a Sherman, but as you can see, it is quite fast, with a tactical of 12, a terrain of 16, and a cross country of 28, and 32 road dash. Cross check ain't bad either. And the gun is the same as your regular Sherman, and the machine gun composition is the same as well. Okay, so we have the Sherman Armoured Squadron again. The difference between this and the Fortress Europe ones is the AA units that you can take instead, the Crusaders. So we have 3 units of Shermans, so that's 3 Shermans and 1 Firefly. 2 Shermans are in the HQ, and we have 3 Stuarts as well. Supporting them, we have some Sextons again, a Sherman OP, Daimlers, and M10s, and these Shermans have been upgraded to Canadian Division Shermans as well, because the Canadians are the best, really. Let's put it that way. Okay, so we've seen the Shermans and Fireflies plenty of times now. Nothing has changed on them. It's still you maximum of 3 Shermans and 1 Firefly in your unit, or you can have 2 Shermans and 1 Firefly, but I tend to like to have units of 4. Okay, so as I mentioned, they are Canadian, so it makes them a remount and a 3+, and this is just 3 points for the formation. So obviously the Fireflies are already remounting on 3s, but it means the rest of the troop is remounted on 3s as well. There are 2 other command cards as well. So we have the Guards Division. So this can actually be equipped to the Cromwell Armoured Recce and Motor Company as well. So for 3 points, basically they have a last stand of 3+. So basically your option is having a better remount or a better last stand, or you can have it all with the 1st Polish Armoured Division. So basically you just become fearless on a 3+, but it's +2 points per unit. So it does cost a lot more than your flat 3 points for the formation, but quite handy just being fearless. Okay, so now we have the Desert Rat Motor Company. So we have 2 motor platoons. We have Desert Rat Universal Carriers, flamethrowers, MMG carriers, and 3-inch mortars. Backing them up, we have some M10s. We have a parachute platoon because I want a bigger infantry unit that also isn't reluctant to do stuff. 3 Shermans, DD Armoured Troop, Desert Rat Cromwell Troop, and Desert Rat Stuarts, a bit stuck for points. We also have some 4.2-inch mortars and carrier transport. So basically, carrier transport, they are your half tracks that the Americans use, but they don't have machine guns on them. Okay, so like the Desert Rat Rifle Company, the motor platoon is also reluctant and with a slightly worse counterattack on a 4+, but their other organisation is the same as your regular motor platoon, so with the Bren gun teams, giving them a slightly better rate of fire. And I did mention earlier there is a command card, not just for the Desert Rat Rifle Company, but for the Desert Rat Motor Company as well, for 1 point. The 43rd Wessex Division, Cautious Not Stupid. So during the startup step when rallying pinned down units, you may discard this card to automatically rally a pinned down unit from this formation. But you have to use it carefully. And I didn't use it in this list because I feel the paratroopers are going to be doing the heavy lifting. Okay, so now we have a Desert Rats Cromwell Armoured Squadron. So it's not just Cromwells because we had nothing big enough to carry the 17-pounder at this point, so we had to use the Fireflies. So we have 2 units of Cromwells or Fireflies. The HQ is 2 Cromwells. We also have a Desert Rat Stuart Recce troop and some Crusaders just to anchor down this formation because you'll see we will need it in a minute. We also have our Sextons, Daimlers, and M10s with parachute platoon support. So you could, in theory, drop the M10s and add another troop of Desert Rat Cromwells. Gives you an extra 1 17-pounder with 3 Cromwells. I know it anchors the formation a little bit more, but I'd rather have 4 more 17-pounders. Okay, so you can see straight up the stats. So we've already seen the Recce Cromwell. So these guys are careful, reluctant, trained, but they remount on the 3+. But trying to assault stuff with them and trying to counterattack ain't the best. And as you can see, it is the same for the Firefly because it matches the stats. There's nothing to alter this, unfortunately. If you take Desert Rats, then you're reluctant, my friends. I'm sorry about that. But 3+ rally, 3+ remount ain't bad. But the problem is if you don't get back in and you're in bad spirits, most likely your unit be running away. So I thought I'd put these in because we've seen the Stuarts and the Crusaders already. We saw the Stuarts in Fortress Europe. I just want you to see how the Desert Rats affects their overall stats. So they just make them reluctant. Their remounts are 4+. The AA is still a counterattack on a 6, and the Scout Assault Tank is a 5+ assault as it is, and the SP gun assault 6. But it does make them slightly cheaper. The Crusader AA is actually just 2 points with the Desert Rats, but I think the Stuart stays the same. Okay, so we have the Motor Company again, but not Desert Rats. So we have 2 platoons with universal carriers, wasps, and 3-inch mortars. Supporting them, we have our M10s again, our parachute platoon, Sherman DDs, and a Sherman Armoured troop. And again, our 4.2-inch mortars, carrier transport with dedicated AA, and Joe Ekins coming back. We haven't seen him for a while. Okay, so the motor platoon hasn't changed much from Fortress Europe. Obviously, the biggest difference is the war weariness is rally. Unfortunately, we can't change this with a motor platoon. We can only change it to guards, making them a 3+ last stand. So unfortunately, like the Desert Rat motor platoon, the paratroopers are going to have to do the donkey work, unfortunately. And that is it for formations in the book. So now we're going to have a little look at the build formations, which there are 3 very good ones, I think, from this book. And well, actually, we have more than that. We have a fair few. I hope I've taken enough photos. And we also have our support units. Okay, so now we have our Recce troops. So we have a Recce squadron, so it's just made up of Daimlers, which is nice. It's just absolute mayhem, this list, but I quite like it. And you can also take your 4.2-inch mortars as well, because you have your 3-inch mortars. So quite nice. And then we have a Canadian Recce squadron, which is nice. So we have Sherman DD Armoured Squadron HQ, 1 to 3 Sherman DD Armoured Troop, and then our Stuarts. But the good thing about these guys is they gain Scout, and they can also be equipped with the Canadian Division Relentless upgrade as well. So they remount on 3s. Right, so these ones are not Recce units. So we have the Breaching Group, which is basically the Nutbuster. So the HQ is a Sherman DD Armoured Squadron. Then you have 1 to 2 Sherman DD Armoured Troops, 2 to 4 AVRE Assault Sections. We will have a look at them. And we also have 0 to 2 Crocodile Flame Tanks. So it's basically digging out infantry and murdering them is these guys' main job. And then we also have an SAS parachute squadron. So we have a parachute rifle company HQ, and then we have 1 to 2 para rifle platoons, and then we have 2 to 3 FFI platoons or FTP platoons, so basically French resistance. We then have a meager unit of 6-pounders, so only 2, and then also a small unit of 3-inch mortars. But these guys, their weapons change. So basically, the para platoons have Sten guns, so they're 4-inch range, but they're halted 3, moving rate of fire 3, but pinned down rate of fire 1. Their skill becomes 3+, and they have close-in fight and assault, which is hitting on 2+. So 2+ assault, you can't go wrong with that one. Well, you can with 1s. Okay, so these two support units are quite prevalent, and they were in the Fortress Europe book. That's why I've lumped them both together to get them through quickly. M10's great, anti-tank 14, always good. They would be nicer to have a better remount though, because it's 50-50 trying to get in and a 50-50 last stand. It just doesn't quite cut it for me. And then the Daimlers, again, very good for your little spearhead movement and scout, and the little John adapter is quite handy as well. Okay, so the Typhoon, I think I still prefer the Thunderbolt over this. So it's hit on a 5, confident and trained. If it was veteran, probably would prefer it a little bit more. So basically your two options are, you have your 20mm guns, so 6 shots total from your 2 aircraft with anti-tank 6 and a firepower of 5+. So taking out your enemy self-propelled guns and half-tracks is a good job for this guy. And its rockets, pretty decent against armor as well. I have taken out, Panthers, most artillery can take out Panthers, and it's a 3+ firepower. The problem is you have to range in and actually hit the stuff first, which is always easier said than done. Okay, so you might be surprised I haven't actually had the crocodiles already in any of my lists, but that was mainly because I wanted something a little bit faster to come in from reserve, but otherwise I do quite like it. Front armor 11, making it impervious to a lot of enemy fire. At long range, there's even no point shooting at them. So they're careful, confident, of course, counterattack on a 6, but they remount on a 3+, and they're trained. The only problem with them as well is they can't hold or contest objectives, which is a big problem. They're also quite slow, but the main thing they have going for them is their flamethrower, which is 6 shots, and of course there's an auto firepower. So that's 18 shots there with your 3 crocodiles if they're still alive, and they just cause absolute mayhem against dug-in infantry. Another interesting unit is AVRE, so basically fires a dustbin-sized shell out of his gun. Not very far, but it is quite damaging. So it's careful, confident veteran. It has a very good, it has a 5+ counterattack and a decent remount. So the gun is only 6 inches, but danger close does not apply to it, so you can get in nice and close with your infantry. It's not got the same armor as your crocodile, so it is slightly more vulnerable, and the artillery obviously isn't going to do much against armor, but it is auto firepower, and I do like auto firepowers. It is brutal, and it's a bunker killer, and it's a petard. So basically brutal means infantry, including nests and bunkers, and armored tank teams reroll successful saves. Bunker killer means it can hit nests and bunkers, and petard basically doesn't suffer the effect of having only 2 teams. So you don't have to reroll your hits, folks. Another new unit I don't think I'll ever use, just based on the points and what I think they're capable of, and nothing I haven't seen them being used yet. We have the Centaur. So basically these are just close support Cromwells in their own unit, so they have the same stats as your Cromwell, so careful, confident, trained with a 3+ remount, but they are artillery units for 20 points though, so more expensive than priests, but they can keep up with the infantry. So the artillery isn't got a massive range, but it's fairly decent. Anti-tank 3+ firepower, fires smoke, and then direct anti-tank 8 with a 2+ firepower, and it's brutal, but it is also slow firing. So I can see why people might want to use it to help with digging out infantry, but I could probably spend 20 points elsewhere. Okay, so this is the final slide. We're there, folks. So I thought I'd add these two in because some of you do like defending out there. I don't begrudge people defending, but if you want to defend, you'll want a big gun. So why not better than a 17-pounder, but not in an M10? So that means you can have more 17-pounders, which is always nice. So we have 2 varieties. We have the Airborne one, so you can take this in formation as the air landing troop. So that'll cost you 16 points for 4 or 2 for 8. So it's fearless, careful, trained, but it's a large gun, so you can't pop it very well in an ambush. It has to be over 16 inches away, and it has a 4+ gun save, so that's where your problems arise, and it's also forward firing. And then you have the regular 17-pounder anti-tank troop, so it can't be taken in any formation, but is a support unit, but it is only 12 points for 4. So let that sink in there. But again, you have the same limitations as I mentioned in the Airborne one. So that is it for D-Day British. Probably, well, what are we going on to 30 odd minutes here? So sorry it's taken so long, but there's a lot to cover in this book. And being British, I slightly want to cover everything in detail. And by far, probably my favourite book because it came out during lockdown and probably helped me mentally that a little bit more. So until then, everyone stay safe. And we will do a 100-point list build for Bulge British.